Hello, faithful listeners, and welcome to The Worst People We Know. This is episode 100! Woo. Oh, it's very exciting. I'm Mike Flynn.
I'm Jeff Baldwin.
And I'm Sean Delahunt.
Guys, the century mark.
Ooh.
Welcome to The Worst People We Know.
It's a big deal. 100 episodes. It's been doing it for
you.
over a year.
Yeah. We have different
episodes.
EPW, I think, is the metric, episodes per week. Like we kind of fast forwarded our way to it, but then slowed it down a little bit at the end.
Hall of Fame numbers.
Yeah.
Well, everybody at the end of their career trails off their production.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah.
And, we finally figured out the audio stuff, so that's good. Now the triple
that
digits.
16, 17 episodes.
It definitely did.
Have you guys gone back and listened to any of the early ones?
No,
Recently,
I feel
or
like
no? Yeah,
I'd feel like
can't.
too weirded out by it.
Yep. I thought about doing it for this, but I'm like, I don't need to judge myself anymore.
Yeah. There's a podcast called My Brother, and Me, I think, which is about like three brothers, and it's like they just bullshit about nonsense. And so my sister-in-law introduced me to it, but the guy, they were saying on one episode that I listened to, like, yeah, our early episodes, we weren't very good at this. We don't recommend you.
Well,
you listen to those.
You don't know what you're doing. You're just kind of like talking. I don't know. Not that
I've told people about these episodes or about a podcast, or somebody will ask, and then they'll ask like to listen, and I'll send a link. And some people will start at the beginning, and I don't want to direct people how to consume content.
Right,
do whatever you like with it, but it's like at some point I'm just kind of like, I don't want you like, don't listen, don't start at the beginning. You don't have to start at the beginning because that's not the way it's set up, right? It's not like we're telling a story week to week. And then
it's not the
also
Sopranos.
it's like,
there's no backstory.
If you start at the beginning, but there is like
there is some backstory. There's a lot of inside jokes, but you can go back.
It's like a episode of like Big Bang Theory. I know you like to pick on that show, Mike, where it's like nothing really changes, but there is some history of the characters. But you can tune into any episode. Yeah. It doesn't matter. You understand what's going on. But if you watch,
just give me the episode where they kill Charlie Sheen.
Yeah, no, that was the other one that guy did.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
but it's not. Anyway, so 100 episode. I'm pretty excited about that. Today we're going to discuss some special requests from our fans. Obviously, to celebrate 100, people have been anticipating that 100 is coming. They've been writing in,
lot of buzz.
And we're going to address some of those. Of course, we're going to talk about the business and tech news of the day. Tesla Battery Day was last week as of this recording. We've got some more COVID supply chain havoc that hits an interesting part of the economy that we haven't seen yet. And the financial implications of relocating after going 100% work from home. But speaking of fan requests, guys, I don't know if you were checking the physical mail since we've been doing work from home at our headquarters, the 69th floor of Salesforce Tower. But I made a quick run up there, and neither of you guys are in San Francisco anymore, and just to check the mail.
Good.
And we got a letter from one of our listeners. Would you like to hear it?
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah. And it is from, again, like we don't want to like start infighting amongst our listeners. So we're not going to say he's our number one listener or number one fan, but certainly he's top 10, both in personal wealth in the world and as a listener. It's Jeff B from Seattle.
We mentioned him a lot.
He likes to go by his pseudonym, Jeff B. So again, we got this letter, and so I'll just read it to you guys.
Yeah.
To whom it may concern, which I think is a little formal based for the relationship.
He knows our names. What the hell?
Yeah. TWPWK Podcast, 69th floor, Salesforce Tower. This letter is served upon due to the frequent reference to and insinuation of Jeff Bezos being a listener and fan of your program. Aggressive, but that's how Jeff is sometimes.
Yeah.
If you do not cease the aforementioned activity, a lawsuit will be commenced against you. If the activity continues, we will immediately seek a temporary restraining order in district court against you and your accomplices in this matter. P.S. Love the episode on Peloton. So, it's kind of a mixed message.
He's such a nice guy. I like him.
There's a lot to unpack there, I feel like, because I have an Alexa, which might turn on now. and Jeff B's always listening to me through that. So as we're recording,
that's a
he's
good
listening
point.
Two,
it's like we're all on a podcast for Jeff B.
The Peloton episode.
Times.
Did you see how there was this Prime bike that Amazon said they don't know anything about, but was a competitor? So I feel like he probably listened to the Peloton episode, thought like, yeah, this could be a thing. I got to get into the market.
Yep.
So
yeah,
probably.
But we haven't given away too much about who Jeff B is, though.
I hope
saying
not.
That he owns Amazon. Right?
Now, lots of people
who
own
doesn't
Amazon,
own Amazon?
You know?
It's a big company.
Yeah,
I mean, if you
publicly traded
have an
company.
ETF, a mutual fund, you're owning
Right.
Amazon, man.
Yeah. Anyway. Cool.
Some other episode requests. One of our friends, was it the neurosurgeon? Someone requested, where have we been and where are we going? Which I thought was kind of a good question, a good topic to cover on the 100th episode.
Yeah.
Where have we been? Well, kind of the same place. Three of us just talking.
One person moves around a lot, though, and then I have to change
that is true.
End before the outtakes about. So
that's true.
challenging.
Right now, I am back in Florida. From New Jersey to Florida. Today is my first episode in Florida. It is hot here. I saw some alligators, which was exciting.
Sean, you've been in LA the whole time, right?
Yeah, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, you weren't in San Francisco when we started recording.
No.
Okay.
I've been pleasantly surprised with the mask wearing in Florida. Like, I haven't been all that many places so far, but like, I was kind of expecting some of my, like half the people to be wearing masks. And so far I've seen most people are wearing masks. I see once in a while.
Very recently, the governor just eliminated any local restrictions related to COVID. It's like, nope, those are gone.
Yeah.
See that's great. I think that's good. But then you have to pick like the other side. It's like two opposite ends of the magnet trying to go together. It's like you want no restrictions. It's like, just, okay, masks are awesome. Like that's a drum you got to beat. Like that's great. Like do these 5 steps and nobody has to worry about it, which I think seems to be the current standard, current advice. So I don't understand why you have to be like anti-mask and pro reopening. It's like these are.
No, I don't. Well, you're just claiming that it's nothing, which is a pretty
stupid. Your point, if most people
are
are doing it, I think most people are reasonable if they're not being fed all this garbage bullshit from other people. Where they're like, you don't need to wear a mask; it's impeding your freedom, and you need.
You're impeding your freedom. I'm asking you when you're inside to not endanger the people that work there. That's what I'm asking you to do. Yeah. And if you don't do that, then you're not allowed in their private business.
Right.
And if you do, then you'll get a small fine. I can't believe how much my freedom's being impeded.
I feel like both sides are digging in though. Like it's no one's allowed. Like, you either got the crazies on the one side who are basically like, I don't ever want to wear a mask. This is bullshit. We shouldn't have shut down the economy at all. And you're like, okay, well, that's not really true. None of those things are true. At the same time, you also got the other side of people who are still not leaving their homes and not thinking anyone else should be leaving their homes. And it's like, we're 8 months into this. Somebody should be doing something. Like,
go to the grocery store
open up
3
at some
times
point.
a week, not just once a week.
Well, there you go. Yeah. It's a big deal.
I was at Ocean Beach today, and it was the busiest I've ever seen Ocean Beach. And it was still, Ocean Beach is a really big beach, and there's not that much parking. So, like, people were all socially distanced, but there were a lot of people out. And it was outside, so they should be.
Yeah.
Well, exactly. Like the woman that came up to you in the park. It's like, just leave me alone, woman. You're 20 feet away from me. Why are you?
She was 30 or more feet away from me and came up within 6 feet of me to tell me information that was not true about whether or not I should be wearing a mask when I was sitting next to my family.
So there's crazies on both sides. Shocker.
Yeah.
But there's a lot in Florida.
The way to solve that is by mocking each other and digging in deeper and creating a micro civil war. That's the solution that we've decided on.
So where have we been and where are we going?
Sorry, they got me going.
So we were doing. When did we start? April? No, May.
I'm going to go back to episode
April of 2019 we started.
2019, yeah.
We've done 100 episodes. We went from we were doing one episode in 2 parts for 6 months. I think the most
something like that.
of
episode 1 is You're All a Bunch of Betas.
Yes.
And it's labeled May 13, 2019.
Okay. So, I think we were trying to do a lot of subject lines, and
we're really trying to cram it in there. Like when you go to like a all-you-can-eat buffet, and you're like, I might not ever see food again. It kind of felt like that. Like they were marathons.
They were marathons.
Well, not only were they marathons, like how ambitious we were. We put out 3 episodes before we put out a bonus episode.
Ooh,
like, boom!
Yeah.
They need more content, guys.
They just always need more
We're
content.
3 episodes in.
So yeah, the 10 people that were listening to us back then definitely needed more content. So, and then we switched. We did 2 a week because there was some infighting on what an appropriate length for a podcast is. I still say 3 hours is fine, although in our current situation of us having to edit them and all of that stuff, 3 hours is too much.
And I've talked about this before in the context of like even like Netflix or the Irishman that was on there. Like I like if it's digestible, you'll keep going into it. Now I found I don't want to go on a tangent on it now. I think we can talk about it a lot later. And I see Jeff, you even have one recommendation on it. But YouTube channels, the beauty of that, a lot of those videos are like people will put on like stories. Like I've been watching this Mine one that you sent out recently, and they're like 10 to 20 minutes long. But if like somebody could have put out like 3 hours and be like, oh, how am I going to go back to it? How's YouTube even going to manage it? The problem I have with a longer podcast is like, I don't know where I left off. I don't know what service I was last listening to it on.
Like, I only listen in one place. And so
I might tell my smart speaker in the kitchen to turn it on and it picks it from Stitcher. And then I play it on my iPhone and it picks it from Apple. So it's just like.
I think what I like about a podcast is that it is a more in-depth conversation. Like if I want to watch 10 minutes on something, I'll watch YouTube. If I want to see people fight for 20 minutes, I'll watch, the Daily News. Like it's, I don't know. I like a long conversation about a topic where you really dig in.
Yeah.
And
well, let me tell you something, guys. I think you guys are under the impression that we had a bunch of 3-hour-long episodes. Yeah. I'm like randomly clicking in the first 15, 16 minutes.
Stats.
Or first, I'm not seeing very many episodes that are longer than the one we published last week.
And I will say, when we started, I had in my mind the target that we should be under 45 minutes, and that was driven by the fact that I used to have a commute that was about that duration. And now I don't think the word commute exists anmore in our lexicon.
No, the English language has changed.
Well, that's a good sort of, so we were basically doing these 2 episodes a week. COVID kind of hurt our listener numbers. I mean, I feel like a half or more than half?
Yeah.
When COVID hit. And so it kind of became this thing where, I think we all want to just keep doing this and we want it to be fun. And that's why we went to news only and a subject line because it became work, right? I think we were kind of struggling for more. We had this big buildup of all this shit we wanted to talk about before, and that we did it. We talked about all of it. It was harder and harder to come up with something. And so, and I think the ones that we were passionate about were always fun, but the ones we were kind of forcing always felt forced and like work. And so that's why we've gone to this new format, because we would like to keep it going. And it should be fun and it should be easy and it should just be a conversation. And that's what we're doing. But the COVID thing kind of, it's like, okay, well, if our listeners are going to get cut in half, then we got to do something to make this sustainable. And 4 to 6 hours a week of editing cumulatively between the 3 of us was a little much.
So we talked about this a little bit before we started recording, but so pre-COVID, I think it was easy. People would listen to a podcast and I would do the same thing. Like if I'm going to work, maybe I would listen to an episode if I was working, probably not now because I work for a small company with only one other person. I don't have too much where it's just like, I've got to sit here and be like, look like I'm doing something all day. But if I used to be at an office where it's like, I got 8 hours to burn and like, I don't want to work on this today, I'll put on my headphones and sit in front of my computer and listen to a podcast. But I think now with like COVID, it's a little bit more, it's probably more challenging. I don't know, like where people find them listening. We mentioned one listener of ours in Colorado. I think he had told us that he listens. He does like work in the garage on like a weekend and would listen. Yeah, I was doing some prep. I do a lot of like food prep cooking on like the weekends, and I'll listen to like podcasts or music or something like that during that, and that's a good time. But it's weird now without. I think the commute was an easy. People had like 2 hours a day, 5 days a week, like 10 hours of time to essentially like fill with stuff, and this was good for driving or riding on public transportation. So it's a different world now.
It's a different world. Yeah, we are seeing numbers.
I would listen to.
Go ahead.
I would listen to more podcasts, but my 5.5-year-old just not that into 4 hours of Dan Carlin's hardcore history. Yeah. Plus, I don't know how much I want him hearing about a World War II guy drowning literally in mud. Through like a.
The Genghis Khan one's super child friendly though. That guy is a super sweet guy.
Well, he did make a lot of children, so in a way, he's a family man.
He did do that. Yeah, and I think our listener numbers have been coming back recently. I think mostly thanks to Mike's marketing efforts.
Social media manager.
We're on YouTube now, so that's exciting as of last week.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not just our tube, it's your tube.
Everybody can tube it.
Everybody's tube, yeah.
That's my understanding. Like a quick business side on YouTube. So we're on YouTube and so we're going to try and do a few different things on YouTube as well as just like, publishing the episodes with just kind of blank backgrounds. We'll also probably do some summary episodes. So like, this episode in 2 minutes or whatever. Yeah. Highlights, that kind of thing. Yeah. For
highlight
sure.
reel.
But what I was thinking about is like what always like hits me about YouTube is I was in business school when Google bought YouTube, and of like everyone in business school, the consensus was, they just bought $1 billion liability of people who would just steal content and post it onto YouTube. That was a weird purchase from Google. And now YouTube is the second largest search engine in the world.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy how much it is the place for video. Like Vimeo is the only other one I can even name. And I don't go there.
But Vimeo, I would say one thing I do like about them, I used to have an app on my Fire TV for it, or maybe it was on Roku. They had like this curated video. I feel like theirs are a little bit more higher quality. Like YouTube is like everything, but they had like the editor's picks, and it would be like night sky, like well produced, like beautiful video, 4K content and music and all this. Like it felt like it was like a film festival.
You're not getting like tips on how to use Excel better on Vimeo. Yeah.
Why are you even on there then?
I mean, to your point, Mike, like that, I don't know why it isn't. Maybe because Google it doesn't matter. They've got enough lawyers, but like there's, I don't 10% at least of the content on YouTube has to be illegal, violating copyrights. Like videos that go up there with music, like there's all sorts of, just nobody cares. Like if in a different environment, it would be something that would get shut down by a court order. I think to this date still, like the way it's based on the content that's on there. But it's just like Google has become such a fixture, and they're so important. Like nobody's going to fuck with them.
Well, but they take stuff down. They take stuff down pretty aggressively. So like if you're if you're Viacom, like I've looked for old like Daily Show clips, and it annoys the shit out of me that they don't allow them on there. They don't allow them anywhere. But I think Google takes them down without asking questions, and then it's up to that person to argue. Because I've heard where that goes wrong too, where someone's like, look, like this song was playing in the background of like an outdoor area, and now I have to take the whole 20-minute video down. That was like one of my more popular videos, So I don't know. I think that's a lot of the reason they do that is because of exactly what you're saying.
Did we talk about that weird Olympics thing with music in the live video or no?
Yeah, we had talked about that before. It was on figure skating or
figure
something.
Skating. Yeah. Oh. So they had changed some law about what like defining it as a live performance, because there was some argument in court where like the figure skaters, they couldn't play if they played music and then NBC played it, like the performance of the person dancing and doing whatever they're figure skating,
which is like the whole idea of that, right? Is to play music.
It could be nice dancing.
Like they're playing, they're dancing to this song. If NBC played that on the Olympics, then they would have to pay. 400 million people saw that, so you have to pay like whatever the fee is for playing the Rolling Stones on there. And so all the figure skaters had to select music that was like in the public domain. It was like over 100 years old.
10 races.
And so they changed the law, and all of a sudden people could start to skate to things that were like modern, which was quite meaningful in terms of the difference of what they would actually do for skating, which is it's kind of a crazy, weird world. But yeah, they have ways of tagging the music where they can identify if you're using copyrighted material like music now. But there is, I think, also the content creators
literally though,
themselves.
sorry. If there's a song you like, you can find it on YouTube. There's like websites that, and maybe it's licensed, but I think a lot of them aren't. You can find them non-licensed. There's websites you can go to then and like convert a YouTube to an MP3, and then you have that song. Like it's a platform for piracy still. Like they might be working against it, but it's like if you had you had like a bar where people or bikers were going in, it's like they're shooting each other a lot, but we're arresting them at the end of the day. It's like that bar would get shut down. Like YouTube is that bar for online piracy, and they're like, we're doing an okay job at like managing this shit. We're powerful. Don't fuck with us. That's the only point.
Here's what I think is different, though. I think like what's different is that YouTube and Google, they've worked with this is still supposed to be about our 100th episode. We're so good at this. We're on the 100th episode and we're talking
I know
about
what my favorite tangent is. Our current one that we're in.
This is the best episode. Regardless, what they do, like they've worked with the industry very tightly, and they've made concessions and they've pulled down like me, like just putting up nothing but like, a Celine Dion song because number one Celine Dion fan in this basement. So anyway, like they've made those concessions, and now it's like these other things are worth the cost of the additional visibility and marketing leverage that you're getting from these things, right? So like, MTV basically doesn't exist. I don't know, cable basically doesn't exist, but like MTV was the number one channel in the universe when we were in high school.
Oh, it was so cool.
And before that, like, it was that's what you would want, a music video, that's what you got. Now it's like Vivo, is that what it's called? Like if you go to YouTube and
YouTube
you
bought
Google
Vivo,
like
right?
any
like that was a separate service at some point.
Yeah. That's basically what music videos are. If you're going to create a music video, you put it out on YouTube, right? And so somebody could rip that, and like there's a service where you could rip that music video and get that song for free, but it's at the point where...
But also that doesn't matter because...
That's hard enough to do, where it's like, that's not that much.
You don't want that. You want Apple Music or Spotify or something else. And
what
you're talking about,
I'm going to spend an hour doing that for like 10 songs, or I could spend $10 and the subscription.
But that's another, like the music industry wanted, like everyone's got to buy a CD and we can track that and everything. So then you'd want an MP3 and you could burn your own CDs. But now it's like nobody gives a shit about CDs anymore, Frank, or nobody gives a shit about minutes anymore, Frank. Like, it's just like I'm not going to rip music off of YouTube because I have Spotify and it's easy.
I would like to see what the revenue numbers differences are for the industry on that, right? Where it's like, what are the royalties off of like the Spotifys and Apple Musics of the world?
I've heard they're not very good.
When somebody had to walk in and buy a $16 CD, right? Because like you think about me as a, I don't know, whatever I was, high schooler or college kid, like maybe I would buy... College, we had Napster, so we weren't buying CDs in college.
That was wonderful.
Middle school, high school. Yeah, if I bought 5 CDs a year, that was like a lot of money for me.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, there's so much more music I consume now, and the unit price is lower. I missed that.
Columbia House.
He said Columbia House.
You get 17 CDs for $1 or whatever the hell that was.
Yeah. If you're under 30 years old, you probably have no idea what that reference is.
I would think 5 years younger than like 30 is probably the cutoff to have ever heard of Columbia House. Yeah.
My brother has heard of Columbia House. He's 5 years younger. That's 35. Yeah. If you're under 30, you haven't heard of Columbia House.
Yeah. Anyway.
Because if you're, we're 18, like you would be 8 when Napster came out.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. You probably weren't buying CDs at 7.
Probably weren't doing that.
Yeah.
So anyway, like $16, like you were buying, like, so 16 times 5. So I was paying $60, $70 a year. Or now I'm paying $15 for my whole family. And like old people mostly probably don't buy CDs, right? Like they're just listening to their cassette. Yeah. Cassettes. My dad had like 3 cassettes. It was like,
can I say,
an Irish music cassette, a Peter, Paul and Mary
cassette. It's so nice to be
Springsteen, Born to Run.
It's so nice to be over the whole like media, like physical media thing. So like we had tapes, then we had CDs, and you had to your whole collection had to move to CD. The same with movies, right?
You had like a friend that had to get all the DVDs, then you got all the Blu-rays.
All the DVDs, and now the Blu-rays.
And when their TV broke, they put a new TV on top of it. And then we played GoldenEye.
Yeah. Video games even
video
now
games are strange though.
Too.
They still rely a lot on like media, not entirely.
What, video games?
Like they're like the last holdout for that.
Well, that's because some of them are so much like data. Like it's like if you want to store that on your like hard drive, you need like terabytes of space if you want to have like a decent game collection. I think that's the issue. But
you need yourself a Rick Sanchez, which is like next on the agenda items here.
It is next on the agenda.
The FTPs.
That's our server that we have all
well, before we
get,
so let's say thank you to Rick Sanchez, our server, who has helped us and facilitated us to produce these 100 episodes for you, the listeners.
He's like thank you, Rick. 6 terabytes at least right now, I think.
Whew. 6T. That's like my bank account, 6 trillion. Thank you, Rick. And then to close this out, in case this is your first episode, yes, this was us talking about where we've been and how we've been, and yes, we did go on at least 2 very deep tangents. That's what you're in store
Less
for.
Less than 100 minutes, though, short and to the point.
It's pretty good. So we're 48 minutes into the intro, which is pretty nice in terms of recording right now. Do you guys want to just quickly go over maybe like what your favorite subject line or main topic episode is? Favorite guest? You can just say one or the other.
Favorite subject line? Shoespiracy theories. To this day, I hope we can.
That's my least favorite.
Really? Do we haven't won you over yet?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think I've had. I don't know. I don't have one. I like the ones where we get into like good discussions and we're not like forcing through like a educational point. And I feel like there's a lot of those. The one that I think of the most is the Uber one. I think our first episode was pretty good.
That was pretty good.
Because that was, just us riffing on that pretty divisive topic.
I probably did more research for that one episode than I did for the other 99 combined.
Mike, you did a lot of research. You wrote a Medium post for that in our Medium channel.
I know. I was like getting real aggressive. And then math and the reality of the number of hours of a day came into play.
Yeah.
Because that was not sustainable. But it was fun, and it was better than me actually doing work for the job that paid me money, which is why we still do it.
What's yours, Mike?
The cannabis episode I enjoyed a lot with my friend Ryan. And that's also was my favorite tangent, which I forget how I came. Oh, I think it was like I saw some Instagram post about what animal would you prefer to do your taxes? I thought that was just a really good diversionary, and I think there were some good deep answers there. Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
And our guest Ryan had a really good answer around. He chose the raccoon / trash panda, and he's like, because he's wearing a mask and he's not afraid to get into the dirt. I was like, that's a good answer.
That's a good answer. Yeah. It's a very good answer.
We're gonna have to go. I think we're gonna have to revisit that question maybe in the next week or two for the election episode. What animal would you elect to the highest office in the land? Would be probably a good question to visit.
Chester the cheetah.
Yeah, sure. Well, we've already got that guy.
4 more years.
Not that cool, though.
Not as cool.
So, now that we've gone through all that front-end nonsense, Tesla Battery Day. That's a topic, the first topic in the news. Who wants to talk about Tesla Battery Day?
Sean, you actually watched the whole thing, right?
I watched the whole thing. It was, it started with their shareholders meeting.
That's basically what it is. I mean,
so that was what you did. So the point of order, the attendance, that was the best part.
I mean, it was, and they had like the voting, and there were a couple. They even opened the lines. I love that, where they're like I think it's like the Sisters of Christian Charity or something. Like some Catholic nuns are big Tesla shareholders, and they're pushing for them to be more socially responsible, which I love. But it's weird to hear like this. I guess is he like the CFO, something like that of Tesla? I should probably know that. Comes out and he was like he's like their chief counsel, legal counsel, was like the MC of the shareholder meeting. And they go through all the points of order. It was like, but they let the people talk. So it's a little bit awkward where they're like, they're kind of telling these people why they're doing a bad job or what they want to change. But I think it's like the democracy of these markets that we have of stock ownership, right? Like people can be like, I don't like what you're doing. I want to try and sway things. I think not enough people vote. I've plugged that before or recommended that for people to actually pay attention and vote on these things. But one guy even said in his thing, like only like, I don't know what the percentage is, but like 5% of shareholders end up voting. Like it's very small. But you listen to that whole thing, and then they bundled it with Battery Day, and I think part of that was just due to COVID and the challenges with getting everybody together and holding the meeting. But it was an interesting meeting. The last thing like that I had watched was the Apple, what do they call that? Whatever the new product
conference
release. Sorry?
Well, they have WWDC, which is
one with the new
Worldwide
iPad
Developer Conference.
The other guy.
What was that? That was just a random,
just like an event.
Thing. Yeah.
So I call those Apple events.
Apple event.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay. So that, and we had talked about this when this happened. That was a very produced, like fancy, and I don't know how much of any of it was live. The Tesla thing was fully live, Zoom. It was all engineers presenting like nerdy engineering stuff, which I kind of love, but also as a full disclosure here, investor in Tesla, like I like the one thing I like about them is they could be what Apple became. Like if you look at what Apple was, they were making dinky little personal computers in a garage at some point. And now it's just like they are everything in the tech world, or at least like one component, but they do everything in that. And you might pick like, I'm not an Apple guy, I'm a Google guy, I'm a Microsoft guy, whatever it is, but they own all of that. Like Tesla can get there, but they're not there yet. And that's kind of a reminder I found that event was kind of a reminder of that. You see, it's just kind of like, it's a little bit awkward. During the actual Battery Day that we're talking about, Elon was presenting, I meant to remember this guy's name, and now I'm going to forget it, but the guy, it was like the head of the battery development, was also presenting. I felt like he did a slightly better job and was like less socially awkward than Elon Musk presenting.
Yeah. But that's some part of Elon's charm is that he's a terrible presenter. Like, and that's not anything new.
Yeah. The event, they had all the guys, like people drove up in their Teslas. They were honking when they liked things. That was like the equivalent of applause. But it felt like the movie Cars, kind of like it was a shareholder meeting and like event. But the cars were the people, not the people anymore.
It was a drive-in. We haven't mentioned that. It was a drive-in presentation.
Yeah,
which
drive-in theater.
I thought was clever for a car company.
Yeah. Well, what I didn't like, everything was a Tesla there as a fiduciarily fiscally responsible human being. I own a 12-year-old Subaru that is now worth like $10,000 because I do hate the environment. But Subaru loves the environment in like a fossil fuel pollution type way.
Subaru, they really have done this amazing job of like, we love the environment, but we build the same car everyone else builds. Like, it makes no sense.
Slightly worse though. They are less fuel efficient than other car companies. Like,
but you know, if you're a lesbian, you want to get out of the house in our Forester.
Yeah, that's true.
They wouldn't like, I don't think as a Tesla shareholder, they wouldn't like let me up front row if I drove there and be like, yep, park your Subaru here. Nope. Like, get the fuck out of here. But yeah, it was a drive-in with a bunch of Teslas. I love the questions I get are all from Tesla fanboys. Basically, like, I'm Joe Schmo, host of the Tesla Fanboy podcast. Can my Cybertruck have climate control in the back for when I go camping? It's like, okay, like much kinder than the Catholic nuns that wanted better social governance and like environmental justice and social justice for things. But
and to be fair, I watched like a 20-minute recap, and that was for some reason, that was one of the things that they showed was the Cybertruck climate control. And I was much more interested in that as someone that might own a Cybertruck in the future. It's like, I would like that. That would be great. I could care less about what the nuns want. If it's
hopefully they only release Cybertruck on Mars, and then climate control will be a lot more important.
Very important, yeah.
Truck is... That truck belongs on Mars.
Oh, yeah. Definitely. So, Battery Day...
Was there anything interesting besides the fact that they're terrible at presenting?
Well,
was there content that we thought was good?
So, the big thing was Battery Day. One criticism, one article we'll link in the show notes was from Wired, and it said, where was the battery at Battery Day? Like, they've announced this, but it's unclear. Essentially, they're going to... The big news was a new battery cell, or new battery that they're developing. in the past, their current batteries developed in partnership with Panasonic. I think Tesla's going to do this all in-house. It has, they said it was 6 times more powerful, 16% increase in range.
Yeah,
the presentation
can you
itself.
Explain that. Hold on. Do we have an electrical engineer on the line?
Exactly. The presentation itself was like, I texted you guys at the time. I was like, you need to be an electrical engineer to understand this. Like, it was just like, I don't know what you guys are doing. It was clearly put together by engineers who thought it wasn't important to consult anybody else in the world of skills or knowledge. Like, how do you present things to people to make sense? Like, I was interested in this. I don't know. I know the battery is bigger. It doesn't have tabs and
whatever that is.
Whatever the fuck that is.
Forget all that garbage.
Cathodes and
like,
anodes.
Just like this, there's a pretty basic thing here that you just said that I'm just like, how did nobody decide to explain this? It's 6 times more powerful and increases range 16%.
They did,
which is around 1/6. Not 6x. 6x is 600%. So where's that power going? What is the difference between power and range, Jeff?
Yeah. So there's. I didn't watch the whole thing, so I don't know exactly what they're talking about. But you could make the argument that it's more powerful in that it delivers power faster.
Okay.
So that is important because that's
that's eliminating tabs, right? Like it's quicker.
Well, it's quicker.
It's quick. The batteries are quicker because of the tablessness.
Okay. That's what. So when the Porsche Taycan came out, they were arguing that it's better than the Tesla.
By the way, where the hell's our Taycans, people?
By
we're on episode 100. We told you if we got to 100,000 listeners, we all get Taycans. Here we are, looking like a bunch of assholes talking about battery day with no Taycans.
We need at least a couple dozen more listeners. So the reason that they were so great about they were saying they could do the acceleration over and over and over again, whereas Tesla could basically do it once and then it would need to recharge or need some cooling down period. So there is possibly that's what that means is that it can dissipate power faster. The other thing is that the cell itself is just bigger. So it probably is 6 times the power of a normal cell, but they're fitting less of those cells in the car. So the capacity of the entire car is only 16% more. At the same time, that is kind of impressive. If you're really just changing the form factor and nothing else, and you're getting 16% more efficiency or more range, that's good. I don't know. What more can you ask?
But I think that gets to part of the confusion of the way they did this. I liked it as an economist, the way we would present things are incremental, or you'd use the word marginal. And Elon had to keep explaining that, though. I think this was should have been more of a marketing presentation where we know people that do marketing are just terrible lying scumbags. So they try and cheat everything out of it. They tried to break down maybe the battery overall is twice as good, and they wanted to say, well, 15% of it came from this and 22% of it came from this. They tried. It was just so nerdy and into the details. And then what as an investor in Tesla, what I love seeing is I thought this was good. This seems like this is great. They came out with this. They're making their batteries in house. This is great. What does the stock price start doing? It's just down, tanking, because I think people don't they've announced something good, but they don't know. They didn't use the right words. They didn't explain it properly, communicate it to people.
But I also think, I don't disagree with you, although I think that this instance itself is more of a problem with expectations. I think Battery Day has always been basically Investor Day. And it's hey, we're going to give you an update on where we are on new stuff and tell you all the exciting things that are going on. But people built it up as if it was going to be a release of something, as if it was going to be the new iPhone release. And not only is it not that, because the Wired article, and I don't really have a problem with that. I don't think everything needs to be that's one of the problems I think we've talked about in the past. The business today, it's all about superlatives and the new thing and it's here. And if it's not released today, we're all disappointed. All that kind of stuff.
And you can fault Apple, and we kind of did on the other side where it's okay, you came out with a new watch and a new iPad. You already had one and they're 4% better than what the old ones were.
Right.
Great. I think that's to Tesla's credit. It's not they're making big leaps.
Yeah, but
they don't have something to show right now. They could have come out and been here's our battery that's here's our iPhone 4S battery, here's our 5. Like they could take those little steps, but they're not playing that game.
Well, I don't know. You think they're not? I mean, I guess they're not in a marketing.
I'm saying that to their credit too.
Yeah.
Well, so they have multiple audiences, right? And so one of all, like, let's just go back to the first thing, which is like the polish and like the absurdity, right? There is some happy medium place, right, between just complete lying and like obfuscating important information and telling people about tabulous percentages of cobalt and like that people just do not understand or give two poops about, right? And this actually goes back to our previous conversation where we're talking about, oh, people are just digging in. Why do you have to either be the person who like needs complete shutdown and masks when you're in a car by yourself, to like this government is trying to prevent us from breathing and they're fighting all of our freedom and whatever. And it's because people just need a goddamn simple message. They have lives.
True.
They have kids who are sick and like jobs to go to where they come back and they're exhausted. And they're just like, just give me the stupid information and make it as simple as possible, because it turns out I don't have the time to spend 5 hours a week making a podcast about it and researching it. Whereas we do.
Only have 3 hours to 4 hours a week. Yeah.
Yeah. We're in good shape, right? No, and so like when you just narrow it down so much, you take out so much of the detail and information where like people who understand more of the detail are like, you're hiding something and it's unjust. Now, frequently when you're talking about politicians, they are purposely hiding things because they're fucking terrible human beings. But normal people and marketers, that's there's some fuzziness there.
No, and I agree. I agree that for Tesla, I think they're kind of in this strange place, right? Because they're, other than their market cap, which is ginormous, they're not that big of a company, and they shouldn't really be, but they're such in the limelight that they're expected to put on an Apple-like presentation when that's just not going to happen from them for a lot of reasons.
Well, but they just sold, when their stock valuation was up, they just sold a bunch of, or issued a lot more shares to generate a lot more money. Yeah. And I think it's good to put a lot into like the production of vehicles and R&D and all that, but maybe skim a little bit off the top to like add a little polish on things. And I know
maybe a little polish.
One thing that keeps coming up on the shareholder, on like the shareholder voting, is spend money on paid advertisement. I don't agree with that, but I think it's in that same vein where they're like, like they don't need to spend money on advertisement. They like Elon Musk drums up enough publicity, people pay attention to it. But like, it's not just all about like, it's not just engineering. It's not just science. Like you need to do a few more things to make a well-rounded company that takes you forward. And I think that kind of segues into like what excited me coming out almost around the same time as Battery Day is Gavin Newsom signs an executive order for no internal combustion engine, gas-powered vehicles. New vehicles can be sold in California starting in 2035. Like that's fantastic. Tesla's positioned to be like the leader for that, but they need, at some point the company needs to mature, and not that it has to happen overnight, but like start to figure that out. Like Musk even made a note, like it made a comment, like I forget how he said it exactly, but some reference to their valuation where it's like, we're not that big of a company, or we're not that like valuable, or we're not that profitable, but our valuation would suggest otherwise. So there is that disconnect there. They recognize it, but like people are telling them like a lot of what's baked into that, I think, is expectation where like, this is the future. You guys are the ones that are going to do it. So don't fuck it up. Like figure out how to round out all the edges
to
that
me,
you haven't
like,
figured out.
Yeah, what the headline should be. First of all, like the first thing in anything in marketing is who's your audience? Who are you talking to, right? And so if you think about Apple and their polish, right? When they know that they're talking to consumers, for the most part, they talk about consumer-y things. Now, sometimes they're talking about like some crazy crap around like processors that 99.9% of people have no knowledge about, but then they also are talking to developers, and they have very highly produced things that they produce for their developers at WWDC, where like they have PhDs in computer science who get deep in that stuff, but that's not the thing that shows up on the Apple event, right? Like they segment who cares about what,
yeah,
and
their chip is 4 times
right?
faster, whatever the fuck that means,
right?
But that's all anyone really cares about. Yeah,
right. And so like when you talk about like all of this stuff around Battery Day, all of the things that they've done, tablets, like batteries and like a mostly cobalt battery and like all of this stuff, all it boils down to is we've got something that's more powerful and has more range and is cheaper. And that matters because like both to the investment community and to individual like drivers or consumers, because it's like, I have 300 miles right now when I buy a car before I have to charge. Can I get to 400? Is it likely that that's going to happen? When is that going to happen? And from an investor standpoint, they're looking at these cars and they're saying batteries are more expensive than a gas-powered car. You're never going to be a real company. And they have all these short sellers. They need to preach the faith and say, no, actually, we have a way to get there. This is how we're doing it. This is all the work we're doing to say the battery that you're looking at today is not the battery that you're going to be looking at in 3 years, and it's not the battery you're going to be looking at 6 years. But instead of investing a little bit of time to give me $1 million and like make their presentation just a bit better, they went with that like dog and pony show. I could have doubled their valuation.
Even that presentation, it's like they need like the investor relations polished person to go out and like make a few like make a 5-minute video at the end and explain what the highlights are. Like that's cool. If that's,
can you imagine being the investor relations person at Tesla? Like you must just drink so much. So much.
I think that I agree with you in that they're kind of between audiences, right? Like the fanboys, the people that were there from the beginning probably do want to hear all this stuff and do want to know what a tab is and why cobalt is bad and yada, yada, yada.
Have that event for them, but then still...
But you need to sell this to whatever, like my parents and normal people that don't care about that stuff, and they do need to make that transition at some point, and which I'm sure they will.
They did kind of get on it. We haven't talked about 2 other things on here, 2 exciting cars. One is a $25,000 car that isn't like it's just an idea right now. Essentially, they haven't announced a model or what it is, but basically said like
that's the goal.
They're gonna make they're aiming to make a $25,000 electric car, which is huge, like that.
Yeah,
currently. The Model 3 is the most accessible, affordable one, but I think that's like at least $10,000 more, and then you start to add.
Yeah, it starts at 35, and I don't really think you could get one for under 45, really. Yeah. So,
and it'll go up to like I've played around with 70. The website, like you can get up to 78. You can double the price pretty easily, pretty quickly.
Right.
I'm sure you probably can with this $25,000 one too, but that's pretty exciting. That's going to be a big difference maker, I think, especially along with like if California and other states are pushing, other places are pushing, like this is the future, we need to do this, you need to make it cost competitive. The other one that was kind of cool is they showed a video of the Model S Plaid, which was pretty awesome
impressive.
520 mile range, like that would excite me. 0 to 60 mile an hour in under 2 seconds.
That's ridiculous.
$140,000 doesn't super excite me, but like compare like the performance stats. So like what you can probably get like a Mustang or something, like a American muscle car that's relatively affordable that has like similar performance, but I don't think anything is under like not under 2 seconds. No.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's
like nothing is at like.
So I follow this F1 retired F1 driver Nico Rosberg, and he was like looking at new fancy supercars, and he decided on I forget the name of it. It sounds like Renault, but it's not. It's not Renault. It's anyway, Rimac I think is the name of it. They make electric supercars, and it goes 0 to 60 in something like 2 seconds. He's like, to put that in perspective, my F1 car did it in 3. So, like
insane.
It's insane.
It's insane.
Yeah.
Well, that's I don't know like what like it's like it probably would feel a little bit different being in the Model S Plaid versus like the SpaceX Dragon capsule, but I feel like that's got to be somewhat like zero. I don't know like you. I feel like you. So I'm interested in testing that. Like just. I would sit and find.
I've driven the P100D, or I haven't driven it, but I've been in it. And that was scary fast. And that was the one that did it in under 3. But even being in our friend's Model 3, which isn't like the performance, it's just, it's fast, but it's not like the fastest.
Well, the acceleration gets you in
the acceleration is insane. Yeah. It's just like, because it doesn't
electric
shift.
Golf cart versus a golf or a gas golf cart. Like it's the same thing. Like you're just like, whoa.
It doesn't shift gears. It's a weird feeling. And like that, the performance of that is phenomenal. The takeaway, though, in general, even though I don't think they did a phenomenal job with the presentation, it was all good stuff, right? It's basically saying they're working to scale. They're scaling like as they should, right? They're going to build their own batteries. The cobalt thing that you mentioned, Mike, that's a pretty big deal because it's an environmental and human rights thing. A lot of cobalt comes from like terrible like blood diamond type mines in Africa, and so to get rid of all of those heavy minerals that you need, lithium, like in a lithium battery, that's all over the place. Like you got a ton of it in Nevada, and they said they buy land in Nevada and they're trying to try to source it sustainably and like not completely open pit mine thing. All of it was like very positive for the future. They're growing in a good way and they're trying to be responsible. And I think a lot of ways that a lot of these car companies aren't. So, quick, at the end of our quick little discussion on Tesla here,
quick.
I think it was a very positive thing. They could have done it better with the presentation, but all positive messages. They seem to be doing pretty well and
hopefully
moving in the right direction.
Elon M. from Los Angeles starts listening to our podcast since Jeff B. from Seattle got so angry about it, and he can take a few tips from us. We can help him out, and
totally
be good.
So another high-tech thing we got here is refrigerator supply chain.
I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but there's a small virus that has been circulating around the world that has caused some there's been some disruption to standard life. We've talked about this before. Paper towels and toilet paper, everyone has taken note on. It's affected some other industries as well. But refrigerator supply chain, which was a little bit like, this seems weird.
Not one I would have
something that got affected.
Pegged for this, yeah.
Yeah, but there was an article, an NPR article about the shortage of new refrigerators and other major appliances that has been caused by COVID, right? And so one of the triggers that they talked about, whereas your standard stuff that you would expect would affect supply, where certain factories shut down, workers couldn't come in, all the production was reduced and all that stuff. But then on the demand side, turns out, when you're a hoarder, if you're really thinking ahead, if you're trying to hoard food, you got to get a freezer, right?
Yeah.
So people were buying second freezers.
Freezer, yeah. That's the way to go.
I thought there was something interesting about this story when I saw the headline initially, and then when I read it, it was essentially just like hoarders. And then the article, they said first everybody was going to buy freezers, and then when those sold out, they were buying second refrigerators with like the freezer as part of it because they ran out of just standalone like freezers. But
what's wrong with
coffee
people?
Freezers,
yeah. What like
I get the chest freezer to some extent, especially in the beginning of all this. It's like, you know what? I'm just going to buy a ton of whatever and freeze it and have it in my garage. I do feel like,
but it literally went to waste. Like that's what bothers me. Like people that did that, it's not like they're not eating like all the frozen broccoli they bought at the grocery store the first week of this. They're just like, fuck it now. Like everything's fine. Like, fuck this broccoli. I'm gonna throw it out.
Fuck this broccoli. I'm back to chicken wings.
What do they call the broccoli? Is it crowns? What do they call it?
Florets.
This is mostly stock anyway. I'm throwing this shit in the garbage.
So it's crazy, but then like I think that there are specific things about these markets which are interesting as well, right? Because you got to think cars, right? Like cars are something where 100% household penetration, right? But many households own multiple cars. Some households get rid of them quickly. I think the average car is 11 years old, which is a lot older than I would have thought. But like
12
a
here.
Freezer, I mean, when was the last time you bought a refrigerator?
I mean,
never.
I rent them.
I've only lived in apartments.
I rent them and hope they don't break based on my landlord's ability to replace appliances.
But I
bought this house. I don't think I bought. I think the refrigerator came with it. Like so like that's the thing. Like they last effing forever, and it's not like a car where you can also make money off of the service. Like people aren't coming in and servicing, my refrigerator every 30,000 fried chickens. Like
So before we started recording, I mentioned you guys. I wanted to talk about my time at Kevel Chevrolet, where two of the 3 podcast hosts worked, and what I didn't understand. I was just a college freshman, sophomore, some year between
something
college,
like that. Yeah.
I didn't really understand the economy, the way the world works, but I was like, how can a car dealership be a thing? People buy cars like once a decade. Like it's not like the grocery store makes sense. Like it's a store. I'm buying tomatoes every week. Those things are going bad or meeting them. But car dealership, and same with refrigerators, to your point, Mike, like who buys them ever? Like I don't, people must, I don't know.
Well, mattresses, we say the same thing.
Yeah, we had to say, I was about to say, Casper, we had the same conversation. I did the back of the envelope math, and I was like, let's say they get 5. Oh, okay, well, that's $800 million a year. Okay, so there's a lot of people, if they buy one every 20 years, it's because everyone owns one, right?
Well, and I do, if you own a house, I think we're all sort of, Mike, you're the closest because you actually do own a house, but it is, a house in San Francisco, so a little smaller than like your average house in whatever, Ohio. Yeah, if you got a big garage or a basement, okay, like, you own maybe 2 or 3 fridges. Like, you buy a chest freezer for long term, you got a fridge in your basement, you got a fridge in your kitchen. So, I sort of get it. And I think the fascinating part about this is how regular these industries are, right? Like, they produce X amount of refrigerators, they sell basically all of them every year.
Can you think of what would have caused a demand spike in freezers before this?
Exactly.
Like, nothing.
Right.
Murder is the only thing that comes to mind. You want to store body parts. You're just like, everybody's murdering each other. Purge is legal. We're all buying freezers because we want to store the body parts.
Like the dude who has the supply chain, demand generation forecasting job at the freezer company. That guy has not shown up in 5-6 years.
You know what I think it's going to be?
Everyone else's work.
I think it's going to be last year's number times 1.01. I think that's what it's going to be. Oh, look, Dave was dead on again. God, he's good at this.
Yeah. That guy, like everyone else is going to work from home during COVID, and he's just like, oh no, this is exactly what I feared.
Yeah, it is crazy. And I would never have thought that this would have been a thing. That freezer.
So here's a quote from a guy who runs an appliance store. We sold more freezers in 2 days than we did all of last year.
Damn, Jesus.
First of all, how do you sell? Like, where's the inventory? Did you just have
probably sold
a year's
out
worth of inventory sitting on your floor?
I think it could be like back to the mattresses. Like when I went to buy a mattress, what I was bummed out about, they're like, okay, we'll deliver in 2 to 3 weeks to your house. It's like, no, I just sat on it here in the store. I don't want this one because everybody sat on it, but I want the mattress. Like, so they could have sold a lot of them, and it wasn't like,
true.
Like they're making sales, but they're back ordered.
Yeah.
It was like sense. People are storing stuff because they thought that this was the end of times and that we needed food. Do you think that if the food supply chain breaks down, the guy who works at the power plant is showing up that day to run your freezer?
Well, yeah, this is the thing. These people that think the world is ending, it's like, okay, if you think that, fine. But you should be living on you should be living on a farm with solar panels because that's the only thing that's going to like really insulate you from this. None of those people are. They're living their regular lives and they're like whatever, buying gold or hoarding food that's going to last for what, 3 years? The world ends.
They're driving their Suburban that gets 12 miles to a gallon.
And hoarding.
They're also not going to be able to fill up in a week.
So I think I've talked about this guy before, but I follow this like homesteader guy in Oregon on YouTube, and he is one of these prepper dudes, and to his credit, he kind of like does a lot of stuff around his house, but like it's basically hoarding food and gasoline. Like he has these big tanks of gasoline to run all of his equipment, and he has like 3 years of dried food. It's like, when are you ever going to eat this? Like, what? Learn to hunt and farm, then you have food. Why are you 3 years of dried food? If we really need that, you're fucked.
He might have managed in or majored in supply chain management or something. That's all he knows. Like that's like his core competence.
Yeah,
maybe he did.
I don't know that if I'm eating dried food on day 900.
Right, exactly. Well,
not getting better.
Look,
it's not getting better at that point.
Year 4, it never goes into year 4, guys. So food supply comes back in year 4. We all know that. That's why I bought 3 years of food. We're all set. No, you're done. Everything's done. Just don't. The logic makes no sense. Anyway.
Oh yeah, you know what? Great refrigerator supply chain, staying on COVID topics because that's the only thing that any of us talk about other than an election these days.
Yeah.
Do you remember when this started and we're like, we don't want to talk about COVID too much?
Well, it was depressing.
This
in the
episode
though.
or this podcast?
Yeah. When COVID started, we're like, this is just like, we don't need to talk about it too much. Everything's changing. And now it's just like, it is the way of life. Like
it's it. Oh yeah.
But it's fascinating to see how this changes life, right? In weird ways, 6, 8 months in. It's strange that it changes things the way it does, I think. But I don't know.
Yeah, I think the elements of human behavior I think are interesting. The elements of how our systems can handle volatility and which ones where the volatility exists.
Yeah.
Freezers.
Yeah.
Freezers. Not something I would have
toilet paper,
thought about.
Paper towels, rental cars.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So these knock-on effects, normally, I don't know, how normal is it when you have a massive catastrophic economic event? Obviously this pandemic is once in our lifetime, hopefully. But even if you think about the last time we had a massive economic event was 2008, it was all right, this massive thing happened. Very few people understand it. It had to do with credit. It sucks. And now things are going to get better. Right. But that was it, right? This is we're still seeing new crap happening because we're still in it and it's still changing. You never have different things pounding you for 8 months straight in different directions. It's weird.
Yeah, it is weird. So our next topic.
So anyway, VMware's got something to say about that.
Yeah, exactly.
Jeff, tell us about VMware.
Next topic is about remote workers. So VMware employees who take up the company's offer to become permanent remote workers will get a pay cut if they move out of Silicon Valley. Now, this isn't just VMware. The article is about them, but Twitter's offered the same thing. Facebook's mentioned something related to this. So, and the reason I found this article and thought it was interesting is mainly because I don't know how I feel about the idea that okay, everyone's going remote. I get that. But if everyone's remote, then why are they getting paid differently based on where they live? That doesn't make any sense to me. I somewhat understand it. It's okay, well, we made you move here and now you live in San Francisco, one of the most expensive places. So we're going to continue to pay you. If you move out though, why do you wait? What?
Yeah, where does that money
less?
go? Where does that differential go?
Yeah.
Is that just the company's well, we've sourced cheaper labor because they've left this area so I wrote a few questions here that I thought I didn't understand what they were paying for the difference, but I think to some extent if you're getting hired, you're thinking about cost of living adjustment. Say you're a guy, it's
sure.
I think Pittsburgh's a great example. Flynn, you guys went through it directly, but they have Carnegie Mellon, who's big, tech heavy university. And you can live in Pittsburgh and you could make, $80,000 a year and be killing it in Pittsburgh. Maybe.
I told you what my brother worked for Mellon Bank in Pittsburgh. And Mellon Bank was purchased by the Bank of New York. They became BNY Mellon. So Bank of New York, you'd be surprised, their headquarters are in New York City. And they bought Mellon, whose headquarters were in Pittsburgh. So there was a guy in New York who referred to Pittsburgh as the India of the United States because they just kept on moving jobs from New York to Pittsburgh because they were shocked at how much less they had to pay people to do the exact same thing.
That makes sense. It's almost, well, it's not almost, it is a lot of the financial industry. Goldman Sachs has their offices. They used to be on Broad Street in downtown, financial district, New York. their back offices was in Jersey City. And it was this beautiful big building that they built specifically just to house their back office because it was cheaper. It was so much cheaper across the river, which is ridiculous.
Well, but also, wasn't that like they had a weird thing too? Wasn't that like a Flash Boys thing?
Maybe. I don't think it was for that particular thing. They could have easily co-located somewhere else. Like they had most of their, I had a lot of tech friends that worked in that general industry and they were all in Jersey City for some reason. Just because they didn't want to pay.
Morgan Stanley?
Yeah, Morgan Stanley was.
Manhattan Rent. Well, Morgan Stanley also had an office on the middle floor in Morristown of where, like, the law firm that I worked for. And you would get in the elevator, and these guys would get off on the Morgan Stanley floor, all had ponytails. And you're like, I don't think this is the banking IT department. I think these are the computer guys.
These are not the traders. Yeah. So, but
I feel like part of it is part of the reason people get paid more in some of these jobs is the jobs kind of suck. Like, they're grinding you through a machine. I think investment banking or like finance jobs are a great example. Some of these tech jobs are the same thing.
Hopefully we'll talk next week to our investment banking friend who will be on the podcast. We'll see how
then those people get paid a lot of money and their job sucks. So they're like, I'm going to buy this. I'm going to like, it's a cyclical effect, right? Like one feeds the other where, these are high cost of living places, but San Francisco, one thing I loved when I lived there, like it's going away now, but the history of the town is like, it's working class. It's a port city. There's a big Latino population. It's just like, it wasn't like a high tech area. And then it became that, but there are good things about the city and people are willing to pay big money to live there now because they can. They're like, my job sucks, but I want to have a nice house. I want to live by a park. I want all these great amenities. So it's a little bit strange to me. Like part of the pay comes from just, you need to pay for these higher salaries to attract the talent. But part of it is you're attracting them to these high cost of living areas. They've got to pay for it. But the last part, I think, like if you are in, say, San Francisco or New York, part of the reason I think you're getting paid a lot of money is because of the competition for other places. If you're working at Bank of New York and you're in New York and you might go work for JP Morgan, you're worried about that. If they can ship you off to Pittsburgh, they're paying you less. And now you've got like less opportunity cost of your time or where you could go. Like you're almost made worse off by that. So it's like the company wins twice over because they can pay you less and your competition is less.
Yeah. There's several things here that are very confusing to me about this, right? And so like, how do you want to look at this problem? You can look at this problem from the company's perspective and say, well, I was paying this person $120,000 a year. And if I didn't think I was getting economic return off of their work, then I wouldn't have paid them that. So this person's economic value is $120,000 a year at least. That doesn't change based on where they are, right? So that doesn't make sense to give them a pay cut from that perspective. Like giving them a pay raise to move to a place because it's more expensive makes sense if you think, I'm going to get more out of this person if they're here with these other people. If you think that their production is going to go down from working from home, okay, that's one thing, I guess. But
I think people are confusing that, Mike, because they'll say like, I have all sorts of thoughts on this because I worked for one company for a long time in a lot of different locations and they had different ideas on it. But one thing that came to mind was just the way that the person I rent this apartment that I'm in from states it at the end of every year. They're like, oh, we're increasing your rent for a cost of living adjustment. I was like, no, you're adjusting like that doesn't make sense. You're using that wrong. Like I understand what you're saying, but you phrased this wrong. Like that is a cost of living adjustment for me. Like your cost of living hasn't changed. You've got a 30-year fixed rate mortgage with somebody and property taxes
might
incrementally go up. Like, it's not a cost. You are adjusting my cost of living. Like you've misstated what this is.
Yeah. Well, and I get how it gets there, right? I think you guys brought up some interesting, like, kind of secondary ways of like, okay, there's a lot of people there. You know, if I'm a small company, I'm headquartering myself, you know, if I'm a tech, I'm headquartering myself in San Francisco because that's where the talent is. You know, if Elon has even said like he went to LA because that's where all the aerospace people are. If you want to hire good talent, that's where you have to be. And so I think there's a justification for that. And if you hire people in that city and then they go remote, I don't think that's fair to lower their pay just because, I mean, they were there because of you, essentially.
Right.
But they said in the article that it could go the other way. I would love to see stats on that because I don't believe that for a second. Like,
you just pick your new city.
I live in Indianapolis, and I think I'm gonna move to New York. I'd like to live in the Village. Can you
like
hike
you give
my
me
rent?
an 18%, 25% figures? Like, go F yourself.
Yeah,
they said like we think there's going to be productivity losses because we're working remotely, and we recognize this, and it's a global pandemic. Blah blah blah. We need to cut people's pay by 10%. If they leave this area, it makes sense. But they're using the wrong...
Are they gonna also like give me a commission off of the lease payments that they're saving on their, like, oh yeah, here's your dividend from the $400 million office that we're not paying for anymore?
They should, because if you work for a company that you're not an owner of, you're making a mistake.
Yeah,
I agree.
That's right.
Although if you work for a company you are an owner of, sometimes they don't make any money. So there's that problem.
Then you don't have to worry about missing out on the profits, though.
That's a good point.
Blame the owner. Yeah.
It's a very good point.
I cut my salary when I relocated to my basement.
My salary stayed exactly the same this whole time.
No matter what. Florida, New Jersey, paying the same rates.
Exactly. I even paid the same taxes in California and Florida the last couple of years. For, 0 on 0.
Well, guys, do we want to talk about man caves?
I don't know. I thought this was a fun little story. We can see if there's space for it when we're editing this episode. But did you guys see? I got an alert about New York City Transit, one of my favorite organizations that I used to do some consulting for. A couple employees decided to build a man cave in like an abandoned lost room in Grand Central Terminal, which I think is awesome.
Awesome.
Like nobody, like, I don't know. I'd have to look like who owns Grand Central, but it's a thing like some trust, some organization owns it, and it just rents out. Like nobody knows what's there. Like it's not like it's just it's a thing that exists. Like so, there's a room that nobody knew was there. Nobody knew what was going on. Some employees decided to make it a man cave. They put a fridge, a microwave, some futons, table, TV. I think there was like a Fire TV or some streaming device. They set it all up. The end of the story is like the MTA gets angry at their employees. They put, I think at least 3 of them are on like unpaid leave because of this. But it was a cool idea. Nobody knew what was going on there. I guess if they put them on leave, part of the reason like they were concerned there was alcohol in the fridge. Like there have been incidents in the past where like MTA, like I think there was a bad accident. I think it was Long Island Railroad. Where a few people were killed, and there was something, I don't remember if it was drugs or alcohol or cell phone or something, where they were concerned that the vehicle operator was impaired in some way or distracted.
Yeah.
Like that's obviously problematic, but I kind of feel like New York City or MTA took it the wrong way, where they're like, yeah, they're angry and this is outrageously inappropriate. It just reminds me of like some old, like Donald Trump was in that Home Alone or some movie like that, like big, where just the stereotypical New Yorker getting angry because somebody's like doing the wrong thing. They could have spun it in a way where like this wasn't done in the right way. We'd like to make it into our employees clearly need a break room.
They need a lounge.
We're going to do it within our regulations. There won't be alcohol, but do something good. It was just like they're cracking down on their laborers, and they just seem like assholes. So
let me offer you 2 examples of sleeping on the job from my professional career. Early in my career, I was interning. I wouldn't even to call it an internship is an exaggeration. It was a summer job. I had a summer job at a warehouse that like somebody who I knew like was like the manager over the whole warehouse.
I interned at Chevrolet Chevrolet that one summer.
Yeah, that was a good internship. Detailing cars.
Yeah.
So
I detailed.
Like basically my job was to come in the morning, and I spent an hour like collating papers that came off of a dot matrix printer. And it was like, just put these in numerical order.
Just to
and,
rip
like,
off
stack
the tabs?
them.
So can I tangent on that? I was I rented a car so Tampa is about an hour and change from Tampa Airport is an hour and change from the house that I live in Florida. So instead of doing an Uber, I rented a car, had to return it the next day to the budget rental car like in the area. I had to wait. Somehow there were 4 people there that morning. Like, who is renting cars in the middle of
24 feet?
It's not near an airport.
On a Wednesday at 8 a.m.
Yeah, on a dot matrix printer. She's like printing all this stuff out. I'm like, how? How do they still have one of these?
How
did it not break?
Amazing.
How do they even buy paper for this?
How does
I
it
think
hook
that's the
up
beauty
to
of
a
old
modern
technology,
computer?
though. It just doesn't break.
No, you're right. But
Yeah.
but where's the paper coming from? How do you even buy dot matrix printer paper?
Each sheet of paper costs $25 because there's one guy who's still making dot matrix
It's
printers.
ridiculous.
Paper.
Anyway, sorry. Random tangent.
Yeah, so I would collate those, right? And then I was supposed to go to the warehouse and pack up like whatever they had, however many things they had to ship, like I had to go pack them up, right? And for whatever reason, like it was a predictable quantity of things that needed to get packed up for shipment. It was like whatever it was, like 100, right? And there were 4 of us that were there to do it, right? And 3 of the other people one guy was like solid, right? And then the other 2 did jack shit. And so it was like, I'm going to end up packing all of these boxes if like I just go at like the rate that I can. And it's going to be like, I'm going to do 95% of these and these people are going to do nothing all day. And so I would just do half of like all of the boxes. And then I would go to the bathroom and not come back. And like, because I was like, listen, like, I think this is unfair.
You did more than your share.
I did more than what they needed done. And
Smart
this is
strategy.
like, not the best run place. Like, it's the type of place where it's like they had all this office space and it was like cubicles that nobody was sitting in. So I would go find a cubicle that was just like empty with a bunch of boxes around it and like go lie in there and sleep until lunch or something. And then come back and do like whatever else I needed.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. And so like, frankly, they were getting good return on my time. I didn't feel like I was like doing anything that like was, and if I got fired, I didn't give a crap because it turns out that I wasn't looking for a future career in packing stuff in a warehouse. But then the other side of that
Jeff B's not
when I was working for Eventbrite. What's that?
Jeff B is not happy to hear that. He wants everyone to be warehouse packers.
Yeah. Sorry, Jeff B. So when I was working at Eventbrite, they had nap rooms. And I don't know if they even called them nap rooms or whatever. I think they may have called them nap rooms. Like literally it's like, hey, like people, we work so many hours and we're hitting the kombucha keg hard and if you need a nap or whatever, right? And so like mostly they would be used to take personal phone calls. And sometimes on like one Friday a month, they would have a masseuse take one of them over, which was weird. You had to pay for the masseuse though. And but I would go in after I had my first kid because we didn't sleep train the kid because we were stupid first-time parents and blah, 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 and wife, etc. And so I was like getting no sleep. So I would just eat lunch for 15 minutes and then I would sleep for an hour every day in that, like, that would be my lunch hours. Like I'd just sleep in the nap room.
Yeah.
I was like, that's probably what these poor guys are doing. Who knows? These guys could have kids.
Yeah.
Just working the line.
Pound
a couple beers at lunch and take a nap,
Well,
I
and
mean,
it's
nothing
not
wrong
like
with that.
they couldn't have, if they went to like MTA and said, we would love to have, we heard Eventbrite has a nap room. And like, who's ever in charge of MTA would be like, fuck you guys. Like, no way this is going to happen. You guys have to keep working. It's like, well, so what are they supposed to do? They took the Napster route.
Where are we going to find a room for a nap room? Actually, we have a room down here that you guys don't even know about.
I think the fascinating part about this and the fascinating part about a lot of these like urban like explorer things in New York is like there's so much Grand Central on its own. There are tennis courts in there. I don't think most people know that. Like you can join like a tennis club in Grand Central. Like there's like all sorts of crazy shit in New York. And to your point, Delahunt, nobody knows who owns it. Like it's just this random crap. Like, the subway.
Shell Corporation owns this, that rents it out to
Scheinhart
this and
Wigs.
that. And like,
Scheinhart Wigs. Have you guys ever been in, there's no reason you should have, but the subway in Philadelphia?
No.
Okay. So
I haven't heard good things about it.
I lived in Philadelphia, and I worked at a nonprofit for 2 years. So as part of the nonprofit, like we got free Metro cards, but we had to like do service work at the I think it was called Metro. I don't remember what they called it. and we
SEPTA?
had to we're basically mopping up piss. It was gross, and cleaning up trash. But in Center City, Philadelphia, there's a north-south subway and there's an east-west subway in Philadelphia. And then in Center City, there is an underground world from 17th to 13th. It's 4 blocks east-west, and it's 2 or 3 blocks north-south, and there's just nothing there. It was as if they had planned an underground world with commerce, and then they only built 10% of it.
Like a
was
mall,
just
there's
wide open.
It
was like an abandoned underground parking lot where you could just ride your skateboard for forever.
Yeah, well, I mean, there are places.
It's not like it's it's not like it's blocked off. Anyone can walk around in there.
Montreal has an underground city.
Yeah, go ahead.
And
but that makes sense. It's
a lot of cold. So it seems like they wanted to build that, but nobody ever moved in. It's like the Pittsburgh airport.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's crazy. I don't understand how more people don't get murdered there. But anyway,
strange.
If you ever want to get murdered in Philadelphia,
if you want to get murdered,
that's where you should go.
Buy a fridge, buy a freezer now that the supply chain issues have been worked out, so you can store the body parts. Go to Philadelphia, find a body. And, that's how you get away with murder.
Excellent. Well, should we move to recommendations?
Recommendations.
Okay. My recommendation comes from today. I was at the beach and I broke out for the first time in a long time my inflatable couch. And you know what? The experience was as delightful 4 years after I purchased my inflatable couch as it was the first time. And I went and I looked up. I have a Fatboy Lamzac original.
Ooh.
And
3 stars.
went online to go look at it. You could not, when these things came out, you couldn't go onto Facebook and not see an ad of some guy trying to blow up an inflatable
everywhere.
couch. And
I love watching people try to.
There's been some
them.
deflation.
They do such a bad job at it.
For people that don't know what this is, it's that hot dog bun shaped it's basically one big tube of air, and you fold it in half and tie it, and you can lay on.
And you inflate it. Yeah, you inflate it by swinging it through the air and trying to just fill it with wind, and then you twist it the end so it tightens up and gets kind of full.
Sean,
they cost $70.
Who were we with?
They now cost $50
when we were trying to give someone instructions on how to do it in Flores Park.
There were a couple times where I do remember that time. I don't remember who else was.
We were run, and the guy was just refusing to run. He didn't want to look like a jerk.
People feel self-conscious about it. I think you really you just got to run into the wind, and it fills it up. But you really have to be 100% into it. That's
you can't be half-assing it.
And I feel like you also brought it camping at some point, Jeff. And there are places where you just can't get enough. There's not enough runway.
There's not enough road to get up to 88.
Right.
And
exactly. Yeah. Those are nice, though. They are comfy, and they zip back down to nothing.
Yeah, I was on it today. It was great. The only downside was that I had a 40-pound 5-year-old in my crotch. But otherwise, if you don't have one of those, it's a great couch for just grab a book, sit in a park, do it.
I love it. My recommendation is MKBHD on YouTube. He is a Jersey boy, Marquez Brownlee.
Jersey boy.
He does mostly tech stuff. I think a lot of people have heard of him because he's the biggest tech reviewer on YouTube, but I've talked to a couple of friends recently who didn't know. He's got 12 million subscribers, which is
a couple more than us.
Oh, he's 6'3", I think. He plays ultimate frisbee, and he can jump really high.
Wow.
Yep.
He is big.
So, but he does really great reviews. He just very the videos are nice. The opinions are nice. They're not he's kind of telling you what you need to know and showing you what you need to know. If you're looking for tech reviews instead of just randomly Googling, I think he does all the major stuff. So if you want to know what the new iPad Air or the new watch looks like, check that out. It's MKBHD. We'll link it in the show notes.
Nice.
I get all my tech news from Will It Blend.
Oh, that's a good one too.
Golf balls. We've talked a lot about hard booch in recent months on TWPWK. I recently had
found
today,
a good one.
GT's, which is my classic favorite from Beverly Hills. GT's Hard Kombucha. They have a new line, a couple different flavors. Heavenly Hops is one. That's not the one I'm recommending, but I also would recommend that. But the one I had today for the first time was called New World Noir, and it's a new flavor from GT's. It's a Pinot-inspired experience with fruity notes.
Ooh.
It has like you know how you read like a wine review or somebody will tell you they're like it's got hints of blackberry and blue. Oh, I saved that bottle right here. Put that. I must have moved it. But it's like the ingredients are essentially that, where they're like hints of blackberry and blah blah blah. It's like it has blackberry juice in it to get that. It's kombucha and it has alcohol. It's only 3% alcohol by volume, so it's a light drink for like a nice afternoon sipping.
Right.
But they also put like this oak
on the
flavoring in it, so it has like a wine. Like I poured it, and I was like, this smells kind of weird. It's an interesting sensory experience. I would suggest it. GT's, I think, distributes all over the place, so you should be able to find it. Sometimes they give beer or hard booch recommendations, and it's very local distributors. But
I haven't seen the hard booch here, but that GT's is definitely in every.
Well, I was wondering about that because we've talked with Kenny's been on a number of times from Mad Tree, and one of their challenges is just like how do you distribute beer? Everything's so localized, and I don't know. So when I go to the grocery store here, the hard kombucha is with kombucha. It's not with the beer. They're at opposite ends of the store. But I would imagine like GT's, it's easy for them to ship product anywhere in the country that's non-alcoholic, but their alcoholic one, they probably do have to like treat it like beer because it is.
Well, like New Jersey, you're not allowed to. They don't sell beer in ShopRite or grocery stores.
Yeah. But it's weird. Like a few times I've been carded and they have GT's as a few. This one's like sold as alcoholic, so it's 3% by volume, but they have some that are like 0.5%. And there have been a few times I bought it in the past few years where you get carded because it does say like, this has alcohol. You have to be 21 plus. It's like, it's 0.5%. It's kombucha that has alcohol in it. They didn't bother like trying to figure out how to take out. It's not like I'm buying it to get drunk off of, but
they don't know that. Damn kids these days buying all that booch, getting drunk.
Buy spray paint, thank you. Anyway, GT's Hard Kombucha. If you see it by you, try it out. If you're a listener and you like it, tell us. If you're not a listener, tell us how you find out about it.
Okay. Shameless Plugs. DashyDash.com. Visit it. It's great.
Yep. Bubbleboard.com. If you follow stocks at all, it's great. Check it out, thebubbleboard.com.
I normally plug twpwk.com. Still, check that out. But we have a new YouTube channel that we've mentioned. We'll link it in the show notes. Also, if you just go to YouTube and search The Worst People We Know, you'll probably find it. Subscribe, like. We'll post our episodes there, but also some additional fun content that we're working on. So check it out.
Some clips. Even if you don't watch any of it, if you're listening to this right now, just go there and like and subscribe. We need to get this thing off the ground so that, more people find out about it. So, just hit that stupid like button. It's not that hard.
Yeah.
That's right. And then everything will go and it will replicate and will multiply. But if you don't want to replicate and multiply, then our guest next week will be perfect for you.
Good segue.
Next week we have Nico Barnes, co-founder of Champ.
Is it Nico or Nico?
Do they have... I've only known him for 37 years, so I've been calling him Nico as it is.
This is Skirchy or Skirchy.
Yeah, exactly. I felt the same way going to a restaurant.
So that's a good point. I've known that guy, and I didn't know that he decided to change how he pronounces his name, so that's a good point. Champ. I don't want to minimize what they do, but are they a healthy love products company? Is that what we say?
Yeah, sexual health, sexual wellness.
Check out meetchamp.com if you're curious in the meantime.
Yeah. Meet, MEET.
MEAT.
No, not that.
Nope.
No. I don't think they bought that website, which I'm disappointed.
I would like to be the meat champ as a guy that doesn't even eat meat. Like, that's how I win.
If they don't have meatchamp.com, then they need a new marketing guy. MEAT.
As in be introduced to,
Yeah. they think good sex is better when you have the best gear. So if you're looking for some lubes and you're looking for some condoms to be sent directly to you in some discreet packaging with a seamless order experience, then he's the guy for you. And we're going to be talking to him about starting that company up and everything else. Yeah.
Next week.
Keeping it running smoothly with all that lube, I imagine. Like,
I imagine.
Yeah. You think if we all ordered some Champ before an episode, we'd be able to get one in under 2 hours?
An episode in under 2 hours? Or
just lube up
lube
your
it up,
keyboard.
make those segues a lot smoother. Yeah.
He's mentioned some funny scenarios to me about working in a WeWork and having like many samples of lube on his desk. It's like this is embarrassing. This is a weird situation to be in.
I don't know.
This is like twice as much lube as I had on my desk at Bank of America.
Exactly.
My office used to be in a Regis, and I guess it still is if people go to those anymore. I don't know why he's still going to WeWork to bring his lube in and who's looking at it.
Well, no, this was before COVID.
Yeah.
But
there are so many weird, like, those places are just like the mecca for like weird businesses. Like,
True.
I don't know what any business was in the next, like, there were just so many weird businesses.
Yeah, but if you passed by an office and the guy had a bunch of lube on the table, wouldn't you think, okay, that's the weirdest?
How fun would that office be though? Like if he had the same office as Ryan, our cannabis industry guy, where he's like some guy's walking in handing duffel bags of cash, and the other guy down the hall's got lube covering his desk.
You're in the cannabis industry. I'm in the lube industry. Let's do something. Let's collaborate here.
Yeah, let's make it happen.
So that's
all right,
next
guys,
week.
We'll talk to you next week. Thanks for 100 episodes.
Woo!
Here's to 100 more.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Worst People We Know was recorded, edited, and produced in the Golden State, with a little bit of help from the Sunshine State.
The Sunshine State. Gorgeous.
Thank you for listening. If you like what you've heard, please subscribe and find us on Twitter at TWPWK. Thanks.
We should. How much do we want to talk about this?
Well, let's look at. So we have two more news stories than when we originally had this. I like the 100th episode, and we could talk about that for like 20 minutes, maybe.
Yeah, we probably don't need all these news stories.
And then, I mean, I'm like TikTok.
Do we want to talk about TikTok again?
No,
I kind of don't.
I kind of wish we never talked about it in the first place, so I didn't have to.
Yeah,
the only reason it comes up is because it's like it keeps changing.
It's news every week.
So put this in the outtake. Trump's an asshole. TikTok is a disaster. Who knows what's going to happen? Scratch that. The man cave story. It doesn't take but a second to mention it, so we can not mention it in the promo and save it for the end. And if we don't have time,
make a call. Skip it. I like that idea.
I love it.
I like the VMware, and I put some discussion topics. And
I liked that discussion topic. Yeah.
Also liked the battery day and refrigerators. I don't think we need to talk about them that long, but I think it's another interesting COVID thing in the discussion that we've had on paper towels.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah, because there's also weird behavioral
rental
things
cars
in that one.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I want to talk about our time at Kevel too, Jeff, under that one. So if I forget,
absolutely,
just
I
remind me
people
about
will be
Kevel
very
Chevrolet.
interested in that.
So should we get into the news?
Let's do that. I'm going to pee.
There's an electric car company
first.
that's great.
Yep.
Have you guys ever heard? Oh, you're gonna pee. Sorry.
So another high tech.
Well,
high tech thing we got here is
pee.
refrigerator supply chain.
I gotta pee.
Are we taking 100 breaks on this 100th episode?
I think we are.
There's a lot of breaks in this.
I'm gonna get another beer. I mean, why not?
It'd be a record long episode.
Thanks for listening.